Okay, quick review before we get into our new notes. We need to remember some of the key things about triangles before we can learn anything about what we're going to talk about in this unit. So, the major things: a triangle has 3 angles and 3 sides. So we'd call our angles angle A, angle B, and angle C. Our sides here are segment AB, segment BC, and segment AC. We also want to recall our triangle sum theorem. The interior angles of a triangle all add to 180 degrees. And naming a triangle. I name a triangle using the triangle symbol and then my 3 angles, my 3 vertices, in any order. This one I might call triangle ABC. Okay. So, quick example, if I know that the measure of angle A here is 15x plus 2, I know that the measure of angle C is 3x plus 18 and the measure of angle B is 2x. Those are my 3 interior angles. I could add all 3 of those together and set them equal to 180 degrees. That's my triangle sum theorem. That was back to Unit 5. Solving this, 15x plus 3x is 18x plus 2x is 20x. 2 plus 18 is 20. That equals 180. Subtract 20 from both sides. 20x equals 160. Divide both sides by 20 and x equals 8. Okay, that's our quick review, key concepts about triangles. The first special segment that we're going to learn about in a triangle is called the midsegment. Midsegment has some very important properties. First, it's drawn from the midpoint of one side of my triangle to the midpoint of another side. So I'm going to connect one side to another, and I'm definitely connecting at midpoints. Second property, it is parallel to the third side of the triangle. And the third property is that it is exactly half the length of the side it is parallel to. So, if in this diagram here I know D is the midpoint of segment AC, I would mark it this way. If I know G is the midpoint of segment CT, I'd mark it this way. Segment DG is a midsegment. And we know a couple of things. Okay. I know, first, segment DG is parallel to segment AT. Because it's parallel to the third side of my triangle. Second, I know that it is half the length of segment AT. And I can write that in 2 ways. I can say that 1/2 DG equals AT, or if I multiplied it by 2, or messed that up, 2 DG equals AT. Apologize for that mistake, because it's half of AT, or I'd say that DG is half AT. Either way, I'd be able to solve for my variable when we look at examples in just a second. Okay. The next thing is to recognize that I actually have 3 different midsegments. Segment OG would be a midsegment if O was also a midpoint here. And similarly, segment DO would be a midsegment. So my midsegment is not always go left to right. It's connecting any 2 midpoints inside of a triangle. So let's look at some examples of midsegments. I am telling you here that DE is a midsegment, so that's my given statement. And I'm asking you to find the value of x. So if this is a mid-segment, we have to consider the two properties we know. We know that this is parallel to this, but I also know that 2 times segment DE equals segment BC, the side it's parallel to. So I can set up an equation and solve here. Segment DE is x, segment BC is 26. 2 times x equals 26. X is 13. Okay. That works the same way over here. I know segment DE and segment BA are parallel because segment DE is a midsegment. I know that 2 times segment DE equals segment AB. Substitute in what I know. 2 times 14 equals x. Now x is 28. Okay, that's if I know my midsegments, or if I'm looking for a variable along a midsegment. When we look at examples 3 and 4, they're slightly different. DE is still a midsegment, but I'm using a different property of my midsegment. Now, I'm not using the fact that they're parallel or the fact that DE is half of AB. I'm using the fact that segment DE is a midsegment, meaning it cuts these two sides in half. It is meeting at midpoints. That means x has to be equal to 5.5 because E is a midpoint and AE is congruent to EC. That becomes more important in something like number 4 because DE is a midpoint. Lots of people would go here and say, okay, x is 8, but my midpoint means that AD is congruent to DB. AE is congruent to EC. So the only thing I can conclude is 8 is segment AE. What I can really conclude is that segment AB is 20. That means it gets split into 10 and 10 because D is a midpoint, and x would be equal to 10. We're going to revisit these types of questions later on in the chapter, but for now, that's one of our major things that we have to keep in mind about midpoints. That's our midsegments. Our next video is going to discuss mid-triangles.